With me now is California Congressman Khanna. Congressman Khanna, thanks for being back on Faith Nation. 73 million people voted for President Trump. Many agree with him and question the election results, including unverified claims of voter fraud. Congressman Khanna, how can Joe Biden draw in those who are skeptical of his election win?
Well, we need to come together as Americans and recognize that we compete hard, but at the end of the day, we put the country first. And I think he needs to listen to them. He has to understand what has held them back economically, what their anxieties are, and we need to do the best to address them. But we have to come with it with a spirit of reaching out and putting this country back together.
As you well know, Congressman, Republicans picked up House seats at the expense of some of your Democratic colleagues in California and elsewhere. What does that mean come January in terms of legislative policy?
Well, first, there was record turnout on both sides. I think one of the reasons we lost is Trump had huge record turnout in some of these counties. What it means is it's going to require more coalition building. It's going to require figuring out what agenda we have in common. The two areas where we could have things in common. Let's have high-speed internet and broadband to every community. Let's not exclude rural communities and minority communities from the 21st century economy. Let's rebuild our infrastructure and bring manufacturing back to this country. Those are the types of things that can pass.
Congressman, speaking of coalitions, will your caucus shift more toward the moderate or progressive wing as you try to appeal to and win back voters ahead of the midterm elections?
Well, I don't think it's about left or moderate or center. I think it's whether we can have a good jobs agenda. So my view is we should have a $2 trillion massive public investment in creating the infrastructure for the modern economy. That's what China is doing. They're building universities. They're putting in cell towers. They're creating a 5G. They're creating incubation centers. We need to do that. So one could say, well, that's progressive. That's a lot of money. I would say, no, that's also going to help a lot of communities that voted for Donald Trump, and Trump was for $2 trillion. The key, in my view, is a bold economic agenda.
Still, as we see within your party, you have the so-called AOC wing, and then you had Abby Spanberger in Virginia talk about disparate views as far as the direction of the party. So which direction do you see the party headed, at least ideologically?
Well, I think they're both friends of mine. I've talked to them both. And I think what the caucus and the country need to do is come together on places that intersect in these agendas. Look, what we're trying to do as a nation is very difficult. There has never been a multiracial, multi-ethnic democracy in the history of the world. People talk about Canada or Britain. They're 80% white. We're 60% white. We've got people from every part of this country. My parents immigrated from India. I was born in Philadelphia in our bicentenary. So I'm confident that our country is going to be able to do this. Of course, there are going to be differences. Where Abigail Spanberg represents in rural Virginia is very different than where AOC represents in the Queens in New York. But we have to figure out how do we give a dignified place for every American in this country, knowing that it's not going to be an easy process.
Congressman, if you can, in a sentence or two, any hope for Americans to see some sort of COVID relief in the lame duck session?
I'm hopeful. Look, I had spoken out before the election saying we should have cut a deal with President Trump. People in my own party didn't like that. I said, let's do something at 1.8, 1.9 trillion. And we didn't. I think that now we need to get something done. There are people who are hurting. They don't want to see politics. Frankly, in my view, is we shouldn't adjourn even for Christmas until we get something done.
All right. Congressman Khanna from California, thank you so much for your time and your insight.
Thank you very much.